African is ready to fight his own battle and show that after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs.
It's present-day Ghana. These are challenging times. Inflation is at an alarming high of 150% on several goods and services. Taxes have been raised to the high heavens, with new taxes passed every parliamentary session. The dollar rate has just ballooned over the last couple of months. A bag of cement was 40 Ghana cedis in January, and it's up by 115% now. People cannot afford 3 square meals a day. It's unbearable. There's a mass exodus of professionals from Ghana. Most citizens haven't seen this kind of hardship in their lifetime. To add to their country's never-ending woes, demonstrations, workers, teachers, and university lecturers are on strike. Food prices are skyrocketing. Construction projects are stalled. There are mass layoffs, and even pensioners are not left out. The excessive tariffs, escalating costs of utilities, data, and everything else you can think of. It is a crime scene right now. But not too long ago, Ghana was perceived to be the gateway to Africa, and with a stable political climate and a booming economy, investors flocked to the country and it seemed nothing could go wrong. So what did happen? It all started with this man, Nana Addo Dankwa Akuffo Addo. Now picture this. 10 years before independence in 1957, you were born into a wealthy and elite family. Your uncle was part of the United Gold Coast Convention, men who were lawyers, an educated elite who were seemingly fighting for independence. But what they truly did was to appease the British Crown, and then liaise between the Crown and the people, and they made a fortune out of that. Only they had the ear of the governor, and they kept the peace for the British to govern. Then came Kwame Nkrumah, the party's new secretary, who, having learned from the UGCC's lackadaisical attitude to their own course, ignited a real fight for independence. And so, when in 1954 the governor arrested leaders of the UGCC for some disturbances in the country, your father and his friends in the UGCC said Nkrumah had acted independently. Later, when Nkrumah won the country its independence with his newly formed party, your father and his ilk were pushed aside. All your wealth, all the pomp and pageantry, had just vanished like vapor. You've since had it in your mind to avenge your family or to put your family back on the pedestal it belonged to, because deep down, you believe you own Ghana. True to your ulterior motives, you went to law school and became a lawmaker. You were now part of the political class. With slogans and pretense, you won the hearts of many. They thought you were a no-nonsense, incorruptible Nana Addo Dankwa Akuffo Addo. In fact, some members of your own party feared that if you became president, they would be unable to even cut deals or lobby or do anything corrupt. Your life's ultimate goal was to become president, and this is how you did it. Step 1. You need to clean up your image. There are some things you can't hide easily, and one of them is wealth. You were a rich kid, the son of a former head of state. With it came a lot of power and luxury. You schooled in England, mingled with posh kids, and did all the things that rich kids do. But Ghanaians are generally conservative about wealth, so they usually detest show-offs. And since you didn't grow up in Ghana, it was difficult for people to trust you to lead them. You haven't lived like them, so how could you know and fight for their interests? You led the Kumi Priko, Just Take My Life demonstration, against general hardship in the 90s, where some people lost their lives.
Policies that the government has been implementing are policies that do not find favor with the general mass of our people, and that the mass of the people of this country have been systematically impoverished.
Your statements in the past have been very combative and volatile. Comments like, all die, be die, it doesn't matter how you die, didn't sit well with many Ghanaians, who valued peace in the country more than anything else. They feared that your presidency would destabilize the country, so you had to clean up that image. Ghanaians prefer a more approachable person with a calmer personality. Knowing this, your handlers developed a new persona for you. A God-fearing, gentle, and loving family man, Nana Addo. One who now said, the battle is the Lord's. One who would eat from the same bowl with the poor. Go house to campaign in all humility, and it worked. You were the preferred candidate for your party, and, in all Ghanaian minds, the last hope for positive change. Step 2. Create an army of yes men. So now that you've cleaned up your image, the party believes in you, but there is still one problem. Those who know you. Your party executives who have been with you all this time and for the love of their country will not succumb to your agenda. So what do? You create problems for them and have them removed from their positions. You and a few sycophants decide to eliminate all who would stand in your way. You eliminated them using rough tactics. Several allegations of corruption and scandals were persistently leveled against them, under which they caved. Finally, you had full control of your party. Paul Afako, Sammy Crab, and Kwabena Agyapong. These executives were suspended indefinitely from your party, and you now had unhindered power. Your authority was unchallenged. The party operated on your whims. The party machinery was operating full throttle to make you president. Step 3. How to win the election. Now that your party is fully under your control, all roads are cleared for you to become president. Fortunately for you, the current president is not an angel. He has his own demons. You use those demons to bring him down.
Corruption.
What about you, Mr. President? Have you been offered a bribe before?
You mean as president?
As John Mahama,
As a human being?
as a person?
Any human being in the world would have encountered, corruption in a way, one way or the other, either being offered a bribe or a bribe being demanded from you. What you need to do is to put yourself in a position.
Mr. President, did you take it?
No, I haven't taken a bribe. No, but I'm just going to explain to you. What you need to do is to put yourself.
Opportunistically, you had the media on your side, so you exploited all the accusations and speculations of corruption and made sure the media blew it out of proportion. They vehemently drummed it in the ears of Ghanaians to assassinate the current president's character. The goal is to become president, and that is all that matters. Fortunately, people finally buy into your idea after 2 attempts. Even the party's constitution was changed for you to run as flag bearer for the 3rd time. Now that the president has no credibility left, you have cut down his image to pieces. The presidency is yours to take. You have comfortably won the election. Now it's time to set your game plan into motion.
I can promise you one thing. I will do my best to serve your interests and put our country back on the path of progress and prosperity.
However, not everything will be popular with the people, but you have goodwill, so you're forgiven for things other presidents would be crucified for. And now, finally, you are president. Step 4. The media. For any dictatorship to succeed, you need to either have the media on your side or have full control over it. You need to control information and manage what people hear to avoid unnecessary riots and distractions. Your party is perceived to be media-friendly. The main opposition party has military roots. The founder had successfully staged 2 coups. Naturally, this hasn't made him too friendly to the press. So most media outlets leaned towards your party when you were in opposition. When your party came to power the first time, the airwaves and more pro-government media houses were opened. Now is the time to reap the benefits for those years of planting. The few media outlets that spoke against your government are now forcefully closed down. Now that you are president, what you don't need is destruction, distraction, or noise from the opposition or unfriendly media while pursuing your course. You use government machinery to go after unfriendly radio and TV stations and have them closed down. XYZ and Radio Gold all closed down just to have the public uninformed about your activities and your wrongdoings. Step 5. Give them candy. Now you have one last obstacle in your way. The people. You have to plan to divert a majority of the country's resources to your family and friends. However, the people will never sit idle and watch you take everything from them. You need a distraction and a good one that will have a similar effect as candy to a toddler. So you introduce free high school education. This was a shock because usually governments save the best for the last. All major policies and projects are usually started in the last year of the 4-year term. This is to get citizens to keep the government in power to complete projects or continue with good policies. Generally it works. Every government in the Fourth Republic has had 2 terms in office. Such a great and far-reaching policy in the first year of the term was unusual, but was cause for great hope and excitement. To people, If this policy was coming that early, then surely better things were to be expected. This was a stroke of genius. It brought your government a lot of goodwill. It was a convenient excuse for all extra borrowing and government expenditure. People were just happy the burden of paying school fees was finally off. They didn't really care about the quality of the education or how meticulous the implementation was done. In fairness, many people weren't knowledgeable about economics enough to challenge the policy or the supposed cost. And while they rejoiced, you got to work. You started borrowing recklessly for projects and policies which have remained on paper at best. Whenever people questioned the ballooning national debt, you quickly referred to the high free school policy and made it an emotional debate instead of an academic or economic one. Citizens willfully turned a blind eye to many evils which we'll highlight in this video. For many, the policy was a game changer and a lifesaver too. Step 6. The showdown. Finally, now that you are president, it is time to restore your family's prominence and your clan's glory. You reward your friends for their money and time invested. For all this to work out, you need a hitman, someone who lurks in the shadows and does your dirty work. He is your final piece of the puzzle, your nephew, Akuffo Addo. He becomes the unofficial prime minister of the country, the king's hand, a man whom your corrupt deals are executed, the one all your appointees answer to. He holds the key to your office. You directly appoint 50 members of your family into key positions in government, including your cousin as finance minister. Now that you have appointed your cousin as finance minister, you want to control all the resources in the financial ecosystem of the country, even after office. Fortunately for you, there's a banking crisis now, and this is the perfect opportunity to start a banking sector cleanup to stamp your authority and punish your opponents. Elsewhere in the world, when companies fail, the government bails them out. They'll fire the CEOs and make the company profitable again. But in this case, all the banks needed was about 9 billion Ghana cedis to stay afloat. Some banks even sort out foreign investors in buyouts. An example is UT Bank, which was negotiating with a foreign bank when the closure was announced. Still, the government stepped in and used 98 billion Ghana cedis for a so-called restructuring. The government collapsed most of the existing indigenous banks and put them together in a new company, Consolidated Bank Ghana, CBG, controlled by you. This was just your move to take control of the banking sector and carry out a personal vendetta against your enemies. Over 3,000 jobs were lost, and we are not better off. Rather, you have empowered foreign banks and have few indigenous banks left. Even after spending all of that money, bank creditors have still not been paid to date. Bondholders' investments were restructured to earn no interest for 5 years. Basically, you put all these struggling banks into one bank and made your own people managers. In other words, you have all the banks in Ghana controlled solely by you. The Amory deal was born in your attempt to capture the energy sector. Energy contracts were in millions and billions of dollars. The previous government had a deal to build and operate some badges, providing electricity to the country. The deal had just 2 years to run down and have the entire country own the equipment. However, for some reason, your government increased the tenure to 15 years, and the price that the country was supposed to pay ballooned from $250 million to $1.5 billion, at about a 700% increase in the contract cost to the nation. Your friend set up a shell company to purchase Ghana's stake in the Amari deal, worth $1.5 billion. It was shown to be a fraudulent transaction, and the energy minister took the fall for you, the president, who acted as though he was unaware of the details of the documents he had signed. That was just the beginning. You finally captured electricity distribution. That was a stroke of genius, politically and economically. Domsor. Domsor wasn't your slogan, but it's definitely your citizens' new reality. ECG, Electricity Company of Ghana. No PDS, Power Distribution Service. No, it's back to ECG. Contrary to popular belief, you did not sell off ECG, but rather you handed over its management and operations of the company to a private entity called Power Distribution Services in March 2019. Did that make a difference? You said the decision to hand over the operations to ECG to PDS was made as part of the Millennium Challenge Corporation agreement between the United States and Ghana. You knew it was just another ploy by you and your cronies to reap where you did not sow. Gabby's legal firm handled the deal and assembled a group to find a way to capture the electricity distribution without spending a dime. You set up a company, PDS, to manage all the electricity distribution on behalf of the country. In this case, you brought nothing but an insurance document that you were insured for $200 million to cover the electricity company of Ghana. You used the bills and payments of clients to offset your liabilities or obligations in purchasing the company, which is unheard of. This deal was later exposed, and all you said was that you were misled. Having failed in the energy sector, you turn your eyes to mineral resources. Every year, Ghana gets about $200 million in mineral royalties from all the mining companies operating in the country. You want a piece of that pie. Or may I say you want all of the pie. In typical fashion, you guys got to work. You set up a shell company in a tax haven. The Ghana Beyond Aid agenda birthed the Akuffo deal. It was your attempt at mortgaging 75.6% of the country's mineral revenue in perpetuity. Still, you failed to cover up your trucks, and the loopholes were visible. You said that the Akuffo royalties deal was your government's strategy to raise capital from the proceeds of the mining sector to finance your country's developmental projects. Free SHS, one district, one factory, and the like. You decided to give the government $1 billion, equivalent to 5 years' worth of mineral royalties, in exchange for a perpetual claim by the shell company of all the mineral royalties in the country. Basically, you were collateralizing all of our mineral resources forever for just $1 billion. It does not make sense, right? Yeah. But that's what you did until the public learned of the move, which led to demonstrations and public outcry to fight you against having these deals go through. In fact, your main goal was to do a state capture, that all resources are controlled by you: energy, finance, telecommunication, and most of the natural resources. The president of this developing country wants to live like a Russian oligarch. He has a special chair which he carries everywhere he goes. It is transported in a separate Toyota Land Cruiser V8 everywhere he goes, along with his 50-car-long convoy. The presidential jet is not good enough to satisfy your rich taste. In fact, you want to be able to bathe in the sky, so you rent a private jet at £17,000 per hour anytime you need to travel. You're finally living your childhood fantasy. You have all the power and wealth you've ever wanted. Now you are president, and your friends and family are sorted financially for generations. The citizens can burn, and it's not remotely any of your business.